As you can see, we have our community update 1.2 available. Um, Thank you all for the patience of, trying to stick with us through these challenging technology times of Discord refusing to truly cooperate with us. Um, Seems like it's getting better, but who knows? Maybe that was just luck. Um, so at this point, we are going to be going over the dwarves today. That has been kind of the major push that the team has had that we are going to present to you guys today. Um, Also with me is our project manager. So yeah, you got two people here who can go ahead and answer questions, let you know what's going on. In case because I can't really see chat all the time, but oh, actually, never mind. I'm learning. All right, cool. Um, so in our game, with us being such a satirical fantasy game, dwarves are your very typical dwarves. Short. They're intense. They are good at combat, but also in crafting. And you know one of the things that dwarves, especially if you're going with a more like Nordic themed dwarf, which you kind of see in things like Lord of the Rings, they are also fighters that have a pretty intense pantheon. But for today, we're going to be focusing on one of the dwarves who is a Jarl within one of our key locations in the game. And that is Jarl, as you guys can see, Strosnag Runemaster, um, who was a legendary warrior and leader of the Iron Rune clan. And his speciality, as you guys can see, is military and runecraft. And one of the big things in typical dwarven depictions is that dwarves hate a lot of people. Dwarves hate elves, dwarves hate orcs, dwarves hate, a lot of people. And in our game, we wanted to be true to that, so that is not very different here. Um, so when it comes to that, yeah, we wanted to make sure that we were being accurate to the dwarven depiction of what most people, kind of know and kind of like about dwarves. Um, and excuse me, as you guys can see, if you're also within our community server, which I'd be really impressed if people found this stream without being in the community server, but it doesn't matter. We are we have posted the update, so you guys are also able to check this out yourselves. But we'll give a quick summary about Strosnag and his area, his territory. Um, you're still here, right, Jack?
Yeah,
All right. Yeah, I don't know if you want to take turns, kind of summarizing and going over, or if you want to do sections, whatever you want to do.
sure. Yeah, where are we at?
I just kind of went over him as a person. We're about to head into the early life.
Gotcha. How do you pronounce this name for me there, Tim?
So it is Strosnag.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, Jarl Strosnag is one of the dwarven leaders, like Tim just said. Uh, you can read here Strosnag was born into harsh conditions of the Iron Rune clan, a society built on warfare and discipline. From a young age, he was trained in combat, strategy, and runic magic. By the age of 12, he had slain his first enemy, and by 20, he had commanded warbands in battle. His intelligence and skill in warfare set him apart, and he quickly became one of the clan's most formidable warriors. Strosnag, like most of the dwarves, are generally unassuming creatures in the world of Conqueror. The continent itself that these races live on, they all have their own perceptions and stigma, but as unassuming as dwarves appear, they're generally very hardened and capable fighters that are clearly able to put up enough of a fight to be formidable enemies to the Conqueror themselves, as they're waging their conquest across the continent. So, as far as the dwarves go, someone like Jarl Strosnag is somebody who is actually considered quite the exceptional hero within their mythology or exceptional legend within their culture, just because his individual uh, tales of success and victory are so like formidable in of themselves. Um, but that being said, as we kind of dig more into that, um, Strosnag was capable of becoming the Jarl after his battle against Vragash the Ravager. He had fought an army. He had waged a war on an orc warlord with a vast army of bandits, um, and of course, the orcs themselves were attacking this eastern plains area on our map. And Strosnag, as you can read there, kind of devised a strategic ambush in the Black Pass, where his very capable and trained dwarven forces, who had seen combat before, annihilated the enemy over 3 days of warfare. Afterwards, Strasnag and his legend growing was named Jarl of the Iron Rune clan that he had once grown up in. Tim, did you want to pick up on their reign?
Yeah, so kind of like you can all go ahead and see that under his leadership, the Iron Rune clan became one of the most powerful warrior societies in the land, maintaining a vast and well equipped army. He implemented strict military reforms and expanded the clan's influence through tactical warfare and alliances. His mastery of runecraft further strengthened his warriors, ensuring that they were feared on the battlefield. So, as we can read right there, especially within the world, like we mentioned, the world, but especially because of how stubborn dwarves are, typically, uh, they are hard to give compliments to, but any of the dwarves within the land would go ahead and, hearing the name of Iron Rune, go ahead and give respect and, maybe even a little bit of fear knowing that, such a tough group of dwarves is within their presence or maybe coming through. Um, and, as he went ahead and fought through various battles, again, putting himself into quite a status of legend to the point where, those who were extreme loyalists or faithful people to the Iron Rune clan would go ahead and almost treat him as a bit of a demigod. Now, while like all stories, we're not really sure if he truly was a demigod or not. But some of those people who truly believed in him believed that he was at that level. Of course, you're gonna find other dwarves and other people across the land who think lesser of him. But I mean, it doesn't stop the fact that people truly were afraid of him and his army when that time came. All right, and then do you want to go ahead and tackle the tragedy and betrayal?
Absolutely. So, despite his success, Strosnag suffered deeply personal losses uh, during his reign as Jarl and the ensuing influence and warfare that he went through. He lost his son, Ragnall, in a raid. He never recovered his son's body, and his wife was also lost during a particularly harsh winter on their tribe. Um, Following that, um, ultimately, Strosnag's downfall came at Torvald the Black, a trusted war captain whom Strosnag had treated as a brother. Torvald betrayed Strosnag, conspiring with rival dwarven clans, staging a coup during a feast meant to honor the fallen of the battle. In the chaos, the great hall of the Iron Rune clan was burned, and Strosnag was grievously wounded. Torvald left him for dead among the ruins. Though only near death, Strosnag did survive, and this incredibly capable Jarl and warrior whose life we had followed up to this point was wandering through the frozen wilderness for days, sustained only by his own will. Now, fortunately, as he roams like a warrior without a home, uh, he decided to hunt those that had betrayed him, particularly Torvald the Black and the other dwarven clans that had conspired against him and ultimately raided him and caused him to both lose his family and his presence as a jarl within his own tribe. So from that point, the saga of Jarl Straznag Runemaster remains one of glory, loss, and harsh realities of war. His legend endures in the tales of Scalds, a grim reminder that even the greatest warriors are not immune to fate.
So yeah, as we went ahead and learned here that when especially being betrayed and being left for dead or presumed dead by probably many, for Torvald it was quite easy to go ahead and assume the role of Jarl, seeing that he was the one who went ahead and did this injustice. But typically within dwarven culture, that if you are disgraced in such a way that not only do they themselves carry the resentment, but typically there is a lot of pressure and trauma and that kind of fear of coming back to your kingdom, your land, and trying to explain how someone got the better of you and still demanding that people treat you with such power and such respect. So that is why Straznag went into exile. But we've also are going to touch on his location, which is Dragvorn, the Mire of Cutthroats. So within the festering bogs of the world, where the air is thick with poison and the water rots flesh to the bone, is Dragvorn, the last place a sane soul would ever want to be. But, dwarves, I mean, most races, but especially dwarves, were never meant to live in the swamps. They're meant for, hills and mountains and, even underground. And compared to the other lands that the dwarves keep, none of them treat Dragvorn as a kingdom, not even as a clanhold, nor Forge City. It's a place full of filth and treachery, just surrounded by the swamp that it is. And it is ruled by those who are cruel and ruthless. Although some of them are dwarves, there's also some other races that live there as well. But dwarves seem to be the ones who really take charge. And these kind of dwarves are your outcasts, your dishonored, your dwarves who have long since forgotten the ways of them and their people. And with no loyalty, with no honesty, it's not easy to be safe in these types of places. And with them not being a city of forge, or with their traditional ways, they're not miners, they're not forgers, they don't have mountains to go ahead and gain this valuable resources from. So they mainly focus on violence, along with some other evil misdealings.
Right. It's kind of a question of where dwarves like this could even come from. Generally, when we think of dwarves in a fantasy setting, we do think of these generic, very stereotypical, greed-obsessed and wealth-loving, small, unassuming creatures. But the dwarves in our fantasy are incredibly capable fighters, and they have a particular change in them that we're really excited by. The dwarves in Conqueror aren't necessarily driven by pure greed. They're driven by vice. The same way wealth and greed can be a vice, the dwarves of the Mire ultimately came from Torvald the Black and the remnants of his gang, the survivors of the actual brutal war that they waged against Jarl Straznag. Obviously, after Torvald the Black and his war had ended, the remnants of his gang were lost nearby the Mire, basically stuck imprisoned within this poisonous swamp, and decided to make a home out of their prison. These vice having gangsters within the dwarven culture formed Dregvorn. And from there, they fled deep into the swamps, believing the treacherous terrain would keep them hidden from Torvald himself. So at first, the settlement thrived in its own lawless way. generally outcasts, bandits, and fugitives, similar to the gang that was left behind. But eventually they traded drink and hid during the swamp. It hid and turned the swamp into a den of crime and secrecy. Um, Over time, though, the individual gangsters rose in individual power as they would and had their own individual power shifts. And ultimately, the drug lords emerged, individual gang leaders and mobsters who took control of the village that grew into a city. And as massive power struggles erupted, the city was divided into warring districts. Torvald, once the undisputed ruler left of his gang, failed to maintain control and was eventually left with only a single district under his own command. And the dark history began. Dregvorn spiraled, uh, being stuck within vices of money and what you'll see here: drugs, poisons, hallucinogens, and cursed elixirs. Uh, Dregvorn kind of, you could say, influenced or uh, invented the technology of anything that was necessary to create these vices and further them, especially because the market was there. If it could be brewed, it could shatter the mind, it could turn a man into a gibbering addict. The dwarves of Dregvorn sell it by the barrel. They kill each other over a handful of gold. They will poison rivals' entire stock just to see them drown in debt, and they will trade a brother's life for a fresh batch of rare narcotics. Here, gold is God, and a knife in the back is as common as a handshake.
And as we are talking about Torvald, while he did go ahead and slay Strasnag, or at least attempted to, not everything goes well for those who are traitors and who are not pure of soul, which is why he ended up finding himself back into Dregvorn. And perhaps we will go ahead and we will touch on his story in more detail in a further update. But for now, it's time to just kind of go ahead and, understand that, like I said, not all misdeeds don't go unpunished. But Dregvorn is not built of stone, nor carved from the bones of the earth. It was a wretched thing that was strung together from rotting wood, bone, and metal on top of moss-choked ruins. The streets are raised with wooden walkways, slick with mud, blood, and bile, constantly being rebuilt as the swamp slowly swallows the city, as a swamp naturally does, trying to go ahead and retake everything that it claims as its own. The fog hangs thick, but is unnatural. It is a concoction of narcotic fumes drifting through the alchemical pits, seeping into the lungs of anyone foolish enough to breathe deep. With such a rampant drug problem, along with all the other evilness of Dregvorn, it's very easy for people to go ahead and get lost in this area just due to the aforementioned, narcotic air that is surrounding this place, to go ahead and mess with the mind of those who were trying to seek passage through, or just checking it out, hearing the legends and seeing if they were true. But no wall guards the city, but also none are needed, as the swamp itself is a living prison, filled with flesh-melting bogs, venomous beasts, and water so toxic it can strip a skin in seconds. So those who commit violence are not opposed to using the natural environment around them to go ahead and further their own agendas. But the shanties lean against each other, sagging like drunkards, their foundation sinking into the bubbling filth beneath them. At the heart of the decaying ruin lies the Venom Pit, a massive alchemical swamp laboratory where the most dangerous, mind-shattering brews in all the world are mixed and sold. And within our world, while not immensely popular, within most criminal underbellies, there are some sort of gangs, there are some sort of, drugs, and typically a majority of them will stem from Dregvorn, seeing that it is one of the most prominent places to find it. Like it says here, if a drug exists, it can be found here. If it doesn't, the dwarves will make it. So, within the world lore, not only are dwarves master craftsmen and great warriors, but those who specifically come from Dregvorn know a bit more and are a bit more lethal by being able to create such concoctions. And the society of Dregvorn is that it's strange. There are no kings or no jarls, no clan lords. It's only those who are strong and wealthy and treacherous, seeing that each has their own district of power. The guilds of the drug lords rule the city, each controlling a different product. Some deal with bliss, some with rage, some with dreams, and some with pure, unfiltered death. And especially in a place like this, loyalty is a myth. A dwarf will sell his own blood for a better price, and no alliance lasts longer than a single piece of gold. Especially when you go to typical slums, both fantasy and non, you will know that a lot of people often, like we have mentioned, will quickly turn on each other for anything that can go ahead and give them even temporary relief or temporary joy. And here, it's common business for murder. And if you want to survive, you better have gold. But it's not to buy weapons or armor or bodyguards. It's purely for bribes. Even the weakest dwarf can be deadly. For every ale mug, every piece of bread, and every breath of air could be poisoned. There's only one rule in Dregvorn. Don't get caught without coin. If you have gold, you have life. If you have nothing, you are nothing. And before you know it, other dwarves will quickly feel it, they'll see it, they'll sense it, and you will not survive. And because of how common murder is in this place, there is no grieving here.
Right. Dregvorn is any fantasy universe where alchemy exists and the ability to brew incredibly powerful potions can occur, but this takes place in a particular setting where there are no laws and are no restrictions for the alchemy that's used or the usage for these poisons themselves. So within Dregvorn, there's what we call the Black Vein Market. In the very center of the city, beneath all of uh, the individual houses on stilts, leaning against each other, underneath the rotting canopy of swamp vines and bones that make up the Black City and its individual walkways, the most infamous drug bazaar in the world exists. There, every race within the world comes together, and they buy and they sell every vice possible. Potions of false joy, powders that make the strongest warrior a mindless slave, and vapors that let one see beyond the veil of life and death are all sold here. Every merchant is a liar, and every deal is a trap, every handshake a possible death sentence. But the most feared thing in the Black Vein Market is not the drug, nor the merchants, nor the cutthroats waiting in the shadows. It's the collectors. When buyers can't pay their debts, the flesh pays for them. Eyes, tongues, hands, the dwarves of Dregvorn do not waste good material. The brewmasters, the true rulers of Dregvorn, they're not the clan chiefs, they're not the bandits, they're not the mob bosses, but the actual alchemists who created these formulas, derived these recipes, and ultimately supply the market. Their faces are always hidden behind their plague masks, their lungs long since burned by the fumes of their own creations. They don't speak the languages that we recognize, but they communicate in their formulas and their patents. Their hands are blackened, their veins glow with strange colors. They are their own test subjects, almost removed from the races that they would have originally been. Some say the powerful brewmasters of the city aren't even dwarves anymore, that they're so drunk and so intoxicated by their own formula that they're also something else entirely. Within the flesh pits, where those who fail to pay their debts find themselves. A massive, swamp-ridden laboratory where the most broken, ruined addicts are brought to be used for experiments. Their minds are already so far gone because the brewmasters see them as nothing but test subjects and ingredients of their own. They're pumped full of the new drugs just to see how much a body can take before it shatters. They're dissolved in order to make the reagents needed for new concoctions, and some just never leave as test subjects. To be taken to the flesh pits is to cease to be a person. It's the worst kind of prison. It's a complete racial transaction. You become part of the city and part of the products that they sell. A legendary alchemical formula is hidden deep in the flesh pits, but to retrieve it means facing the horrors that lurk within.
So we have come to learn that Dregvorn is not a city. is a rotting wound in the world, a place where greed, cruelty, and addiction have replaced honor, loyalty, and kinship, a place where gold is king and nothing else matters. And no one ever leaves it the same, if they're even lucky enough to leave. Because once you taste the poison of Dragonborn, it never truly leaves your veins.
I think it's important to remind ourselves, too, that this is Conqueror Reign of Madness. This isn't an individual RPG where you walk the streets of the city and experience all that's said. Your goal as the Conqueror is to remove this wound from the world through the justifications that the Conqueror has to conquer the rest of the continent themselves and believe that they are the true ruler of this. So ultimately, the goal isn't to have experienced Dragonborn, it's to destroy it.
Although, while one would think that destroying it is the best thing to do, but there are other uses for Dragonborn, seeing that we have such strong alchemical elixirs here, such greed, such misery here. Is it better to destroy it? Or is it better to expand it to go ahead and make your own conquering of the lands that much easier?
I mean, that is true. It may very well fit within the Conqueror's plans themselves for whatever they believe should the direction the continent should take.
And to think that this is just the first area of the dwarves that we're going into, and it's not even an official area. Like we said, it's not a city, it's not a kingdom. This is a place of, villainy and scum. Somewhere where any normal person would not want to catch themselves. But as we all know, desperate times and desperate people will do very desperate things.
That is true.
And as we're also going ahead and updating people, we did get a couple of questions for this month. The first one is probably the most prevalent. Well, it's the second one, but I need to address it first. And this question is, why can't I text in the Discord? It automatically deletes my message after it's sent. So, as previously mentioned, and as I have apologized multiple times over, Discord for some reason just does not want to work with us right now. It's something that we have reached out to Discord about. Unfortunately, there has been no ETA given, with the last communication I've received from Discord being about 2 weeks ago. And like I mentioned within the Discord, within the announcements, that due to this very frustrating situation for all of us, because I know everyone would like to continue talking amongst themselves, just, asking questions, stuff like that. But also, I would like to go ahead and kind of build more community engagement. And while the stream is one thing, and some of the other, areas of social media are another, I would really like the Discord to be fixed. As for, is it with the bots? Going through our moderation logs, typically, if it was a bot, it would go ahead and note that a message was deleted for whatever reason. None of the moderation bots have been procced at all. I have not gotten any messages from the bots saying that posts were removed because it contained a certain thing or it did certain things. So that's why I reached out to Discord's in-house service team. So hopefully they can go ahead, they can kind of let me know what's going on. But I did try messing around with the bots. Nothing has really fixed that. And hopefully Discord can give me an answer, or who knows, maybe I'll have to remove all the bots and I'll have to re-add them as time goes on. I'm not really sure. But I do appreciate everyone's patience with that. And like I did mention, I will try to do something special for everybody who's been willing to stick through and have patience with us, especially in this very frustrating time. But going on to the next question. Will we be able to sit on a custom throne? So, kind of akin to our inspiration, there are going to be a handful of different thrones that you can go ahead and pick from. It's not going to be truly customizable just because that is something that is considered outside of scope right now. It's not really reasonable. I mean, you don't even find that in most AAA games, let alone a first-time game for a first-time studio. But there will be a couple of different variations that you can go ahead and pick from. And yes, you will be able to send it. I do want to reiterate something from last time, which someone asked, and that is, does that mean that you are required to save upon sitting, or that the sit and save are connected? They are not going to be connected. We do understand people want that power fantasy, but also to constantly have to go back to your keep and sit down just to save is something that in modern times is a pretty frustrating thing to deal with. So that's why we're avoiding a save system like that. And then our final question that I have here is, will our main character talk, or will he be a silent protagonist? So when it comes to how vocal our character is, one of the things that we really pulled from was our original game, where we definitely want the player to feel like they themselves are the conqueror. And for us to really go ahead and achieve that feeling, we've decided that we do want to kind of scale back a lot of the conversation, a lot of the talking that this character would do. Not only because it's what our predecessor did, but also because, again, it's very hard for at least myself, and I feel like some other people can attest to this. It's kind of hard to connect with a character if they're saying things and they're doing things that you don't really find yourself doing. Well, it can't be a truly open world game like a Skyrim where you can do literally whatever you want. But again, it's kind of hard if you would say, for example, want to talk down to a barkeep, but you want to help out a local like slave or something. Not that that's a real situation, but if your character says something that you yourself wouldn't think of, and you think that's not truly the way that I want to play this character, it can become kind of frustrating and kind of take you out of the experience. So if our character speaks, it's going to be a lot of grunts, just from swinging weapons, from doing the commands that they have to do, and from, well, let's face it, you're going to take some hits while you're playing the game, so while you're taking damage as well. All right, and that is the end of the questions that was submitted through our Q&A tab within the Discord, which will be open always, and we will review before our community update, so we can go ahead and address those questions. But in the meantime, I can see we have at least one person. Hello, NPC Southern Belle. I know I said hello before, but thank you for sticking with us and for interacting with us via chat. Unfortunately, I cannot see the number of people that are currently here, so I can't say thank you to everybody because I don't know how many people are here. But if there are any questions that you would like to ask, we can do our best to go ahead and try and answer them now. There are 3 people. Okay, thank you all 3 of you for going ahead and joining us today. Yeah, so basically at this point, we're just going to kind of, chillax for a little bit. Like I said, we're going to try to do some more community interaction and engagement while we can, especially seeing that the Discord is being such an issue. Hopefully that, like I said, is resolved soon. So if there's anything you guys want to talk about, ask about, or you just want to hang out, that's fine too. But yeah, I think this is right now a good time for you guys to go ahead and interact, seeing that, especially we still have to worry about getting all the other social media accounts to be posting on a frequent basis and to interact on a frequent basis. Seeing that's something that I'm not typically accustomed to, because besides Reddit and Discord, I really don't use social media. I mean, YouTube as well, but that's as far as that goes. So all right, I guess we don't have any questions as of this moment. Again, I'll give you guys a few minutes if you have anything you want to think of, ask, give you that opportunity. But yeah, going forward, we are going to be changing the way we do streams. The reason for that being that, okay. While you're thinking about that, I will go ahead and continue. Yeah, so originally we were trying to play games during the stream. One of the big issues with that has been that while streaming, it's very hard, especially if you're actively trying to worry about like what's going on in game, to go ahead and also be able to engage with the community. So for the time being, we are going to be slowly rolling back how much we're actually playing during the streams. Every once in a while, maybe major checkpoints will we'll hop onto a game like Overlord, or we'll hop onto Minecraft, or something to get a little bit of visual flair going, and to have something else going on. But for the most part, we're going to really be dialing that back to the point where we're basically going to be going in a podcast route, where we're going to actively go ahead, talk about the upcoming updates. We're going to answer the community questions. We'll spend some time just hanging out with the community, because there's been a handful of developers, especially the team behind Warframe, which does a really good job of that. That's been one of our inspirations going forward when it comes to community engagement and updates and stuff like that. So it's one of those things where, yeah, we are finding it's best to go ahead and really spend this time just communicating with you all, versus just kind of like at that point just playing a game and chapping a second thought, because at that point it'd be way easier just to upload a YouTube playthrough or just to stream silently. But that's not really what we're doing here, because we would, again, like to build the community here. And let me check. Is there anything that you want to add onto this, Jack?
I mean, not particularly. I just want to thank everybody for being patient with our community updates, and being so supportive as we work out more consistent ways to do these community updates, as we um, create new methods in which to deliver them to the community, and all of the kind of stuff we're running into with the Discord. And also, I see where we have our question now from Southern Belle.
Yes. So, in regards to, does the player character have a backstory that drives their actions in the game? They do have a backstory that does kind of drive them for what they're doing in the game. At this point, we're not going to be revealing it, because we don't want to spoil too much for you guys, ladies and gentlemen. But at some point, that is probably something we're going to be exploring together. But yes, there is very much a reason why the player is doing what they're doing, and not just evil for the sake of evil. I think that's one thing that the team really wanted to go ahead and adjust for this game, especially seeing that our predecessor was kind of like, okay, you're kind of here, you're kind of evil. You don't really know why. And, to me, that was something that I kind of like. Sure, sometimes mindless fun is great, and just to kind of, turn off the brain and be violent, that's cool. But at the same point, we want to build, a world here. We want to build something that, we can revisit, like, at some point. So we would like to kind of establish some ground rules, some backstories, some stuff like that, to really go ahead and make the world feel more lived in than our predecessor. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I would really like to inform you guys about. Yeah, in the next coming days, we will go ahead. We will post this VOD. Um, Again, like I said, we're going to try and be a little bit more interactive on social media as well. So hopefully we can continue having some conversations here, or there, as well as here. Um, just so, again, we can kind of go ahead and, you know, not only spread the word of what we're doing, but also just, again, to kind of grow the community. Because at this point, I think a lot of the people who are here are mainly here because they want to see, a very similar game to Overlord kind of go ahead and prosper. That's what we're looking to do as well. So we want to get more eyes on us, so we can go ahead. We can, truly reach out and kind of show people either who've kind of forgotten about Overlord but remember playing as a kid, or people who are looking for a new game, or just because I've talked to a fair amount of people who've never played Overlord, who actually never even heard of Overlord before this project. and just kind of expose them to this kind of game, because it's something that, I mean, in modern gaming, besides like Pikmin, you don't really have a lot that kind of represents this kind of game style, especially because even though you have the ability to go ahead and control, in that game, the Pikmin, but overall, just kind of your minions or whatever, but also to be evil. There's not a lot of games that handle both. There are some, of course, and I highly recommend checking those out. And if people are interested in what those kind of games are, I can go ahead. I can update people on what they are. But yeah, for the most part, like I said, it's just kind of rebuilding something that's kind of lost to time and really making the best out of it. Let me see here. All right. If there's nothing else, then I guess we'll go ahead and we will wrap up. I actually think there's family here, so I don't think I can even stream that much more if I really wanted to. So I appreciate everyone coming out and supporting us. Um, like I said, we're going to try to make this a bit more consistent. We're going to also try to make sure that, especially with this being our first time, we're handling it this way. As time goes on, the process is definitely going to be smoothed out, so we can go ahead and, there's not as going to be as many awkward pauses. We're going to have a bit more seamless transitions, stuff like that. So, again, we really appreciate all the patience that everyone has been showing us so far. We really hope to not let you down and to make a great game. Do you have any other final words you would like to communicate, Jack?
I just wanted to thank everybody for tuning in.
All right. Well, for everyone that did show up, thank you for the support. We hope you have a great day. Who knows? Maybe Discord will let you shoot a message through. I'm not really sure. But yeah, take care of yourselves. Have a good day.